What happens when a king chooses pride over God? 400 prophets begged the king to go to war, for they thought God would protect him. But one man, sitting alone in a prison cell, had a completely different answer. And the king was about to make the mistake of asking him. He wasn't famous. He wasn't powerful. He didn't have followers or a platform or anyone cheering his name. No crowds gathered when he spoke. No nobles invited him to dinner. No king gave him a seat at the table. He was just one man, alone in a prison cell, waiting to be called before two kings who sat in royal robes on golden thrones, waiting to walk into a room already filled with 400 men who had given their answer, waiting to do the one thing that everyone around him was begging him not to do: tell the truth. And when they finally came for him, the messenger who walked him to the court leaned in close on the way. His voice dropped to a whisper. He said, "Look, every single prophet in there has already told the king he's going to win. Just say the same thing. Agree with them. Say what they want to hear. Walk out of there and go home." Micaiah kept walking. Then he stopped, turned, and looked the messenger in the eye. "I will only say what God tells me to say." To understand why this moment mattered so much, you have to understand the world Micaiah was walking into. King Ahab of Israel had it all. A palace built from ivory and cedar. A powerful army. A kingdom that stretched across the northern territory of Israel. Ahab had married a woman named Jezebel. She was a Phoenician princess, the daughter of a pagan king, and she had brought with her something far more dangerous than foreign customs or expensive jewelry. She brought her gods, the Baals, the altars, the priests of false religions who now had a home inside the king's own palace. And along with her gods, she brought something else, a deep and burning hatred for the prophets of the Lord. Under Jezebel's influence, the true prophets of God in Israel were not just ignored, they were hunted. Many were killed. The ones who survived did so by hiding. The king's court had been transformed. It was no longer a place where honest counsel was welcomed. It was no longer a place where a man could say, "This is wrong," without fearing what would happen next. It had become a place where only good news was allowed through the door. This is the world Micaiah lived in. This is the court he was about to walk into. The moment that set everything in motion began with a visit. Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah, the southern kingdom, had come to Samaria to see Ahab. The two kingdoms had been divided for years, but on this day, the two kings sat together in their royal robes at the threshing floor outside the city gates, surrounded by their officials and servants. The atmosphere was warm. The alliance felt promising. And then Ahab turned to his guest and posed a question that had clearly been on his mind for some time. There was a city, Ramoth Gilead. It sat in a strategic location east of the Jordan River, and Ahab believed it rightfully belonged to Israel. The Arameans had been holding it, and Ahab felt that long enough was long enough. He looked at Jehoshaphat and asked, "Will you come with me to take it back?" Jehoshaphat was willing. He was in. But Jehoshaphat was a man who took his faith seriously, and before they made any final decision, he had one request. He said, "Let's ask what God says." It was a simple, reasonable ask. Seek God before marching into battle. Find out if this is actually what the Lord wants.
I am confused.
Ahab heard the request and agreed. So he gathered his prophets, all 400 of them. Think about that number for a moment. 400 men who claimed to speak for God. 400 voices assembled before the two kings to give divine guidance on whether to march. They didn't take long to reach a conclusion. One by one, or perhaps all together, they gave their answer. Go up. Go to Ramoth Gilead. Attack. You will win. The Lord will give it into your hands. The message was unanimous, and it was loud. One prophet, a man named Zedekiah, wanted to make sure everyone felt it. He fashioned iron horns and held them up in front of the kings, acting it out with his whole body. He said, "With these, you will gore the Arameans until they are completely destroyed." The room was electric. There was theater and excitement and total confidence. You could feel the momentum building. 400 prophets, all in agreement, all performing the same conclusion with energy and certainty. To any outside observer, it would have seemed settled. But something wasn't sitting right with Jehoshaphat. He couldn't put his finger on exactly what it was. Maybe it was how fast they all agreed. Maybe it was how eager they seemed. He turned to Ahab and asked a careful question. He said, "Is there not another prophet of the Lord here? Someone else we could ask?" It was a polite question, a gentle one, but what it meant underneath was clear, and Ahab's face changed when he heard it. Because there was one more. One man who hadn't been included in the gathering. One voice that Ahab had deliberately left out of the room. A man named Micaiah, son of Imlah. I hate that man. I hate him because he never prophesies anything good about me. Every single time, it's bad news. Jehoshaphat looked at him and said simply, "Don't say that. Send for him." So they sent for Micaiah, and in a prison cell somewhere in Samaria, a man who had probably been locked away for saying the wrong thing to the wrong king, stood up, straightened himself, and began walking toward the most important moment of his life. The messenger found him quickly. There was no long search. Everyone knew where Micaiah was. He was exactly where the king had put him, in a cell, under guard, surviving on bread and water. When the messenger came, Micaiah got up. No hesitation, no dragging of feet. He simply stood and followed the messenger toward the city gates, toward the threshing floor, toward two kings in royal robes. He said, "Every prophet in that room has already spoken in the king's favor. Every single one. Go in there, say the same thing, and you can walk back out. It's that simple." Micaiah stopped, turned, and spoke with the calm of a man who had already counted the cost. "As the Lord lives, I will say only what the Lord tells me to say." And then he kept walking. When Micaiah arrived, the scene was extraordinary. Two kings on thrones, Ahab in his royal robes, Jehoshaphat beside him. Behind them, hundreds of officials. Ahab asked his question straight. Should we go to Ramoth-Gilead to fight or hold back? And Micaiah told him to go. He used almost the exact words the 400 had used. Go up, attack. The Lord will give it into the king's hand. The room exhaled, but something was wrong, and that question revealed everything. Ahab already knew something was wrong. That's why he had kept Micaiah out of the room. That's why he hated him. Not because Micaiah was always wrong, because Micaiah was always right. I saw all of Israel scattered on the mountains, like sheep with no shepherd. The Lord said, "These people have no master. Let each one go home in peace." The room went cold. The king was going to die. The army would fall apart. This war was not a victory. It was a disaster walking toward them in broad daylight. But Micaiah wasn't finished. He described a vision of God seated on his throne, with the armies of heaven standing around him. God had asked, "Who will go and entice Ahab to march to Ramoth-Gilead and fall there?" One spirit stepped forward. "I will do it," he said. "I will be a lying spirit in the mouths of all his prophets." God said, "Go. You will succeed." Micaiah looked across at the 400 men who had declared victory so confidently. The Lord has put a lying spirit in the mouths of all your prophets. The Lord has spoken disaster against you. 400 prophets. one spirit behind all of them. Every word they had spoken flowing from the same poisoned source, and not one of them had even known it. Zedekiah moved first. He walked up and struck Micaiah across the face, then demanded, "Which way did the Spirit of the Lord go when he left me to speak to you?" Zedekiah already felt something, a doubt he couldn't name, a crack in his certainty. People who are completely sure of themselves don't need to hit anyone. Micaiah didn't flinch. "You will find out on the day you go to hide in an inner room. The day the battle turns, the day the news arrives, the day Zedekiah's confidence finally collapses and he finds himself hiding, hoping no one remembers the iron horns. That day was coming. Ahab gave the order. Take him back to prison, bread and water. Hold him there until I return safely from battle." As they led Micaiah away, he turned one last time. "If you ever return safely, then the Lord has not spoken through me. Let all the people take note." And then they took him away. The two kings exchanged a glance. The 400 stood in their places, and Ahab made his decision. He was going to war. Ahab prepared for battle anyway, but Micaiah's warning followed him like a shadow. And for the first time, the king was afraid. So Ahab made a plan. If the enemy could not recognize the king, maybe death could not find him either. Jehoshaphat was told to wear the royal robes instead. The Aramean commanders had received only one order: find the king of Israel, kill the king. Then the battle exploded, and the moment they saw the royal robes, the enemy charged. Jehoshaphat cried out in terror, and suddenly the Arameans realized they had the wrong man. Ahab watched it happen and felt relief. He thought his disguise had worked, thought he had escaped prophecy. Then, somewhere in the chaos, one soldier pulled back his bow and released the arrow. The arrow flew blindly through the battlefield and found the only opening in Ahab's armor. The king of Israel collapsed inside his chariot. Blood filled the armor he trusted, and Ahab began to die. By evening, the king was dead, and the army scattered in fear. Exactly as Micaiah had said, every word came true. The king fell, and Israel went home without a shepherd. We never learn what happened to Micaiah afterward. No celebration, no apology, only truth. Micaiah could have agreed with the crowd, could have spoken comfortable lies, but instead, he chose truth. God did not need 400 voices. He needed one man willing to stand alone. And that one voice changed everything.